Hey, Block 5, Mr. P here. And quick, obviously we got this whole COVID thing going on, so I had to change plans a little bit. I tried to show the race video and videotape it to Zoom, and it had a little bit of lag to it, so it wasn't working very well. I'm going to see what I can do about that for the next time that we meet. So that would be Wednesday. So uh, if you understand the schedule for the rest of the week, tomorrow is going to be Zooming with blocks 1, 2, and 3. So I won't see you tomorrow. But check my Google Classroom just in case I've changed the plans or anything like that. But I'm going to assume that we're going to see each other on Wednesday. If I can somehow get the video about Jesse Owens to work over a recording Zoom or whatever, we'll try and do it that way. But until then, today, but obviously I'm having you watch this video. I'm going to go over some slides with you. You'll be getting out your World War II PowerPoint slides, and I'm going to pick up just after the Molotov-Ribbentrop non-aggression agreement Hitler and Stalin had signed over the invasion of Poland. And so we'll start there, and which is where we left off. And then we're going to get to the invasion of Poland and invasion of France and a few other things. And then there's about 3 or 4 short videos that actually go with this lecture that normally I would embed right into the lecture, but I'm going to have you guys watch those right after I'm done talking on this YouTube clip. And then you'll watch those other clips individually. They're, I think the longest one is 6 minutes, and then the rest are right around 2 or 3 minutes. So without any further ado, here we go. I'm going to share my screen and get into where we left off. So here's where we left off. We were talking about that non-aggression pact, and with that, Hitler kind of ensured that he would only be fighting on one front, on the Western Front, rather than the Eastern Front. And so, yeah. So in 1939, they go ahead and invade Poland. And so finally, that was the last straw. The Allies had it. If you remember, the previous prime minister of Britain was kind of a wimp. He was appeasing Hitler, telling him, please don't do that anymore. But now Britain has a new prime minister, and his name is Winston Churchill. You see him here in the picture. Some of you may have heard of him or watched. They had a new movie out about him last year. And he's more of a tough guy, and he wasn't going to have this. And so Britain and France declare war on Germany right after Germany invades Poland. The invasion of Poland is going to be very quick, and Germany is going to have very little resistance from the Polish army. And you'll see that in the YouTube video that I've got here. And you'll watch that right after I'm done. So I'm going to go right on to my next slide. One of the things that the Germans were famous for during World War II is something called the Blitzkrieg. And if you're a football player, you've heard of the term blitz, which comes from blitzkrieg, and which is just bringing everything all at once. And in football, that's a term for everybody on the defense is going to rush the quarterback, and so it overwhelms their forces. And this was Hitler's strategy on the Western Front with France, and trying to take France very, very quickly. Blitzkrieg means lightning war, and their tank divisions were called the Panzer divisions, Panzer, Panzer divisions. And their air force is called the Luftwaffe, and that's their planes. And Luftwaffe roughly translates to lifting of the wings, like a plane, lifting of the wings, Luftwaffe. And so this blitzkrieg, they were able to overwhelm French and British forces with this strategy of blitzkrieg. So with the German blitzkrieg, some things to note about that. They started their invasion of France in May of 1940. By the beginning of June, so within just a few short weeks, they were able to capture the French capital of Paris. And so right at the beginning of the war, France becomes an occupied territory and of the Germans. A couple things of note. There's a video I want you to watch. It'll be attached to your Google Classroom. It's not very long, but it speaks of the Maginot Line. It looks like it's spelled Maginot, but Maginot is the French pronunciation. And part of the Maginot Line was it was, first of all, it was very heavily fortified. This is where they felt that the Germans would be coming from, and it's where the Germans did come from. And one of the things that's going to be of issue is how easily the German tanks were able to roll through the Ardennes forest. And I have a video about that as well that I'm going to want you to watch. So this is the Ardennes forest here, and the Germans came right through it. The French had believed that it was kind of impenetrable. And part of that belief came from World War I, where it was very difficult terrain to get through. The technology with regards to tank and tank power was not as sophisticated as it was in World War I as to World War II. And this is going to be a big mistake on the part of the French, because the Germans are going to roll their blitzkrieg of panzer divisions right through the Ardennes forest, which the French had kind of left unprotected because they really didn't believe that Germany could get its tanks through that forest. And so where they were really fortifying is the rest of the Maginot Line. Also, in addition, the famous story of the Battle of Dunkirk. And if you are a fan of the musician Harry Styles, he was an actor in the movie that came out. Maybe some of you saw the movie, but basically after or during this whole invasion, they were able to, as you can see here, surround the British troops as they were retreating. They realized that they were outnumbered by the Germans. And so the British troops started to retreat to the town of Dunkirk and the beaches around Dunkirk. And but yet the Germans were able to blow into France and come around the side and basically have them surrounded. And so they were going to get annihilated if not for the rescue efforts from privateers, private merchants and boats. Many of them, the British Navy could not mobilize in time, so they sent out a distress to just private boat owners here in the eastern part of England. And this is not a very big distance here. And they were able to travel that distance within a few hours. And they sent hundreds and hundreds of private boats that made trips trying to rescue nearly 300,000 British soldiers. So imagine 3 football stadiums full of soldiers that they had to evacuate from the beaches of Dunkirk and get them to safety away from the German planes and tanks that were rolling in their direction. So if you're interested in that, there's a YouTube clip of the trailer of the movie that I have attached to this assignment. But you can also, the movie is readily available on the different streaming services. Pretty interesting story there. And then, of course, the very famous air battle. Obviously, Germany cannot roll their tanks into England and Britain. And so this had to be a battle by the Luftwaffe, the German Air Force. And so they really, really bombed the crap out of out of London, and you can see in my slide there, over 1,000 German planes were bombing per day in this so-called Battle of Britain. About 30,000 Londoners, people of London, were killed, but it was seen as a victory because the Germans were not able to actually capture London and therefore the country of England, which was what they intended. Yeah, basically, the German planes were able to destroy and bomb most of the buildings in London, but the people of London were prepared for this. They hid in bomb shelters. They had other makeshift shelters and stayed away from strategic locations that they knew the Germans might be bombing. And so it was very kind of a surprise that only 30,000 citizens of London were killed. But so as you can see, it was seen as somewhat of a victory. Okay, so this is going to be the slide for next time. So that's going to be it for today. Please watch these videos that I've been talking about the Battle of Britain, the Battle of Dunkirk, Ardennes Forest, Maginot Line, and the invasion of Poland. Those are pretty quick videos and should take most of the rest of the time in class. So check Google Classroom. Next time, I'll either try and successfully get that race video out to you guys from home, and or if not, we'll have something else, either a video of me continuing with the notes or something else. Take care, guys.